Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today, I'll be taking a look at a hell of a wild book, Otherworld Barbara by Moto Hagio. This is put out by Fantagraphics in a really beautiful hardcover, like oversized reproduction of an important manga from an important manga artist. I have never read any Moto Hagio stuff before, and I am really, really excited to jump into it. I'm not very well versed in the history of the what is this? The shoujo manga, the romance manga for girls. And I know Moto Hagio is one of the biggest names in there. So in the last Fanabucks sale with some of my credits that I got from pre-ordering everything, and as I'm wrapping up my Paco Roca, I've got all the books they have of his now. I'm looking for some other people to start filling the Breccia library I have pretty filled up now. So I'm looking for some other artists where they have libraries that I can continue to fill out in future Fanabucks sales. So I thought I'd give Moto Hagio a try. I know Sean has talked to me about Heart of Thomas, which I'll talk to him about because I also got that. But that will be that's going to take me a while to get to that one. I'm gonna take a break from recording the 2-3 person videos that we put out on the weekends. I'm gonna take a break from that over the summer while I spend my time focusing on trying to finish Bound, and Brandon and Sean will do that. So we'll get to Heart of Thomas when I get back to doing videos with more than one person. So I had to jump into Otherworld Barbara and gonna kind of go into this one on my own. This is a 2003 production by Moto Hagio, so much more recent than I think the Heart of Thomas, quite a bit older one. The art looks more sophisticated than the little bit of Heart of Thomas I did read. A hell of a weird book, though. You can see I've got notes all throughout this, and that's because as I was reading this book, I was trying really hard to keep up with who was who and what the plot was. I'll do my best to kind of explain it, but it seems like it's constantly shifting all the time. So we start out with, and you're just introduced to so many people so quick in this book, which I guess probably is a thing in the shojo that they're all about interpersonal relationships and stuff. So you're meeting a lot of people quick and getting a lot of information, but my brain's not so good at that, so I was having some trouble. The main character in the book is this girl Aoba. She lives on the island of Barbara, and I always thought the island of Barbara was the center of the world. So we're introduced to that. We're introduced to Maya, who I believe is her aunt, and a couple of other characters that like this goat and other people that are in on the island of Barbara with her. We meet her mother, who is named, well, this character here is named Sanri. I haven't figured out who Sanri is exactly in relationship to everyone else. Then we have Taka, who could be two different people, and then there's this character named Pine. It's not clear. They seem to all live together, and some of them seem related, some of them are not related. Like here, Taka calls Diamond, this character here, mom, and Pine says Aunt Diamond. So these two are cousins. I'm not sure how Aoba fits into that. And then as the story goes on, some of this stuff becomes less important than I thought it was. This character here is a grandpa, at least to this girl here. And Taka calls him Old Thunderbolt, so I don't think he's given a name other than Grandpa or Old Thunderbolt. And you also meet Hinako, who is Diamond's sister, maybe, but she just had a baby that died. So you can see I'm 8 pages into this book already, and there's a whole family here, and I got no idea what's going on. And then they got a roof that has all of these wood nymph characters in their garden that their goat Daisy is eating. It's just a lot. It was a lot right out the gate. And then you find out that the mom, Diamond, is an actress, and she's on the show with this girl named Cosmos. And Cosmos has been playing a kid for 30 years, and Diamond is playing her mom in this show. There's just a lot of these details in the book that like get thrown at you. And again, I'm only on page 18, you know. Um, Diamond's being a terrible mother to Taka, just saying, I wish I hadn't given birth to you. I wouldn't be stuck on this damn island doing this work. Aoba's saving her. Then you learn that Aoba was delivered to Maya. Maya is Diamond's older sister by a long time, and she's always wanted a child of her own but was never able to have one. And so on a night of a full moon, a princess of the moon and a prince of the sea had a kid, and the moon princess brought Aoba over to Maya, and so that's that. So they're in some kind of land where we've got fantasy creatures going on. I'm not totally sure. And then we learned that the Sanri character was 20 years ago. You were just a year old, and they found Sanri floating without a worry in the world. So you have Sanri was a 1 year old who they just found floating in the sky. And that's, again, we're only on page 22. You see that Taka and I forget that character. Pine, there's just too many characters too quick. Taka and Pine can also float, and they take Aoba with them and they can float. So you just got this whole weird family, like, seamed together foster child, but some of them are with their real parents, some of them aren't. They can float, like this whole weird fantasy world. And that's the first 30 pages of the book. So I spent all that time, like, getting real familiar, trying to figure these characters out, figure out what was going on. And then we get to the second chapter, and all of a sudden we're with totally different people, supposedly in the real world. You know, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with the first chapter. And I thought, oh my God, this book is a bunch of short stories about this island and the people that live on it, and like nothing's going to be connected. Like, what the hell's going on in here? Luckily, it is all one story, but the connections are just so tortured throughout the book. It was really hard to keep up. So we jump into this new thing. We're meeting this detective. This is the detective character. This is Detective Watari. Detective Watari is a dream analyzer, and he's the father of this character, Korea, also a student of Professor Dekuo, who is a past life therapist. And so you've got now all of like this kind of stuff coming in to the story, where it's like this whole other world of like Freudian dream analysis and whatnot. Seems totally divorced from the other one. Watari's being given a mission to go look at this photo of a girl who's got like flowers all over her. He's basically someone who has done like dives into criminals' minds. Like that, there's a Jennifer Lopez movie called The Cell that's a really twisted, dark, but really awesome, beautiful movie. And that's kind of what this guy does. He's actually can like dive into their dreams and exist in the dream and analyze that and like pull information, so he can actually get into someone's mind with like a mystic power. And so they brought him in to go into this girl that's like in a coma with flowers all over her mind and find out what's going on with her. You get introduced to another character, this Momota Taro. He is bringing Watari to the girl to explain what's going on, and showing him this girl that's being kept in like this facility here that he's going to jump into her dreams. Some really, really cool technical production tricks. Like there are tones put on top of each other here intentionally to create a moire pattern. More and more and more, I'm really starting to appreciate how the mangaka choose, when they choose to create moire patterns, like it really creates a glistening, glowing look on this like windowsill frame here. So really, really beautiful stuff going on in the art with the tones all throughout the book. This gal that's passed out is, they think she's doing something akin to hibernating, like she's not really getting older. She's in more like a frozen state, but it's something her body is doing to itself naturally. And they've got Watari coming in as a certified dream pilot by the 21st Jungian school. And so they put him into this machine that he's going to dream dive, and he jumps into Aoba's dream, and you get some really nice like sparkle manga effects here. There's this image of the island that you're shown, which is the island of Barbara. So at that point you start to understand that this girl is Aoba. Her name's Jujo Aoba, and the island of Barbara is something that's in her dream. So I thought at this point in the book, like, okay, I've got a pretty good, like the first two chapters are kind of confusing, but I got a pretty good idea of what the story is. We're going to jump into this girl's dream world and try and save her from it and wake her up from a coma. And that seems like, you know, all pretty clear and easy to understand. You get Watari going in there and meeting Aoba in the dream, and everything seems to come together. Then it takes a whole nother crazy turn where you learn that Aoba's parents, and sorry, there's just going to be spoiler reviews, but like I feel like I could give away all these twists and turns and you're still not getting spoilers. And there's a second volume of this, so I don't know how it ends. I'm compelled enough by this whole wild story that I'm definitely going to be getting volume 2 next year if I can. Or no, I actually have it pre-ordered for this year, I think maybe. But anyways, Aoba's parents were like, the mom killed the dad. The mom, whose name was Chana, killed the dad, I believe. And the dad would be Shoichi, and she took his heart out and chopped it up, and like Aoba ate part of it, I think is the suggestion, and that sent her into this coma regression state that she's in the dream world. It's like really, really dark for this very beautiful, sparkly little story about a girl on an island. So she has eaten part of her dad's heart, I believe, that her mother carved out of him. And then we start to find out that there are sightings of this island manifesting in the real world, which is even weirder. Like, this girl's dream is so powerful, it's starting to overtake the real world. And there's all these poltergeist phenomenon popping up around him. We meet Chana's mother, whose name is Nanami, and she has like her own opinion. Chana was the victim, and she's accusing Aoba of removing Chana's heart and eating it. So you're thinking maybe Aoba's this monster. Then we get introduced to a whole nother group of characters. The son, Watari's son, who he has a strained relationship with because he basically abandoned him. This is Korea, and he's getting to know this girl Leica, and there's this other guy Fujin who comes in, and you can see why it's just so hard for me to keep up with this, as compelling as it is. Then you learn that Korea made up the story of the island of Barbara, and like he scanned his hand and ran it through some filters to make it look like an island. So he's like running a website about the island of Barbara, and his dad's finding out that like the Aoba girl who he's diving into, her psyche is in a world that his son created just like as a game of fiction, supposedly. Just things just keep getting weirder and more interconnected. Some really beautiful color work here. I always hate that. As much as I love the black and white manga work, I would always love to see more colored manga. Then we get Korea talking about the name Barbara means foreign country and is related to the word barbarian, and that the word barbarian comes from just like a phonetic, when they're mimicking what a barbarian sounds like. It just sounds like they're going bar, 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 bar. That's where that word comes from. So this island of Barbara means foreign country, and Curia is building his own foreign country for some reason. Aoba's dad had a theory about aliens and Mars, so like Martian aliens are coming into it, and there's like some drawings about aliens, and this professor guy had been studying this stuff. So Aoba's dad has some connection to this Mars project. Watari's wife left him with Korea because of his abilities. She didn't like the idea that he could be spying on her dreams, so that's a thing. The professor describes this idea of finding the cause of negative feelings as the first step to like psychological recovery. That's something I've been learning a little bit more about in Tori's like post-COVID stuff. A lot of people have suggested she has functional neurological disorder, which used to be called conversion therapy. And what we're learning about that is like if you have a traumatic childhood, or it's kind of like PTSD, but if you have extended PTSD, you raised in a traumatic situation, the chemical consequences that on your brain have real physical consequences on the body. And so even though a lot of what's going on with Tori is caused by COVID, the doctors think that like, historically her body had been prepped to react really negatively. So we're learning more about this, like the impact of like psychological counseling helping heal physical wounds as well. So that's suggested in here. Obviously that has to do with the murder of the parents and trying to help heal this girl. We meet Dr. Majiru, who treated Aoba's mother Chana as a child, and apparently she had really bad allergies that went away, and that was like a clue to something in the book. Just a lot of weird stuff. And then we start learning that there is Aoba's red moon, her father's research into Martian life forms, Aoba's dream world Barbara. There's a drug called Barbara that activated some kind of cell to help cure this girl's allergies, and Korea's fictional Barbara are all connected somehow. It starts to become more clear maybe as it goes on why, but there's just all of this stuff, just constantly new stuff being like thrown at you over and over. Then you start to get like, okay, to destroy this utopia that she's built, you got to go in and make Aoba miserable. She's retreated to this dream world, so now Watari's supposed to go in there and make her miserable to snap her out of her reverie and get her out of the dream. So he's got to go become a villain in her dream world. And you think like, okay, I'm 130 pages in right now, and we've only been in the dream world for like this little bit, that first chapter that introduced us to all these interpersonal relationships between all the characters in the dream world. Now I've just been in the real world with Watari for, hundreds of pages. And I'm thinking, okay, we're finally going to go back into the dream world, and the book stays out in the real world for the most part. There's another character named Johannes, who apparently is Aoba's grandpa, who reversed his own aging, and he's come back into it. There's something about Korea doing these dances, putting on the mask and costume of the shoujo. I don't know if that has anything to do with the word, why we call them shoujo comics. Aoba is reaching out to Korea through like manifesting dream images in the real world and tell her to kill his dad so he doesn't ruin the imaginary world. And also now there seems to be a competition between the dream world and the real world, where if she can suck enough people into the dream world, that becomes reality and the real world becomes the dream. So some strange stuff like that. Just a totally wild book all over. Really beautiful reproduction, by the way. I'll laud Fantagraphics for that. Obviously, this being a more recent work, they have access to original art and good materials, scans of the work, so beautifully reproduced. Johannes and Watari's ex-wife are together. So Aoba's father or Aoba's great grandfather has de-aged himself and is with Detective Watari's ex-wife and helped raise Korea. So there's a connection there why he might have imagined this island and something to do with the dust from Mars. Chana's mom, Nanami, was in like clinical trials of some sort. So there's something going on with this stuff from Mars, this spore that came from Mars that's like causing all of this. And then you start seeing manifestations in the real world of like Aoba with the goat that Kiara's finding. They start to introduce another character, Majiro Masharo. He's watching the dreams that they've recorded of Aoba's dreams. He's watching them on like a VR headset thing, so he's like diving into them. It seems like the real stakes for the story is that the real world could become the dream. So there's like this moral conflict between Watari and Kira about like, you know, should we let this world exist, the risk of taking over our own world. It all starts to come together the further you get into it. But there's just so many new characters introduced and so many strange situations. Like here there's another character, Marinabad, introduced. Really beautiful images all the way through. And by page 234, we're finally back in the dream for a little bit. So we're now seeing Watari like entering the dream world and getting to know Aoba. Aoba's explaining to him, this is Watari in the dream, his hair turns black actually. She's explaining that nobody dies, so she's kind of trying to convince him on the superiority of her world. This grandfather figure starts to tell some more about this larger like scientific conspiracy that seems to be behind this, that there's some kind of elixir of mortality that's in their blood, and so they're being kept in this dream world maybe so like these scientists can harvest their blood, and that's like part of the treatment that Aoba's grandmother was going through, maybe. It's very strange. I feel like hopefully by the time I finish reading the final volume, however many volumes there are, it will all make sense. There does seem to be a plan, but I'm glad I took notes on this one to help me make the video, because like I would have not kept up with who was who on this at all. And then we get here Aoba's projection, and she's talking about like her mission is that we can, like they're saying, this planet was fated to die. It's all right. It was long ago, hundreds of millions of years ago. It's all right. It can be reborn here on this planet. Like the civilization that was on Mars could be reborn here on this planet. And when it is, the life forms on this planet will once again become one and will gain eternal life. Become one like the ocean? Yes, forever. What are you talking about? Hope. Hope? You call that hope? It is the future that is meant to be. So it seems like the real core of the story here then is like collective psyche versus individualism, and how this individual like doesn't want to become, you know, one of the hive, one of the drops in the ocean to gain eternal life. Watari seems resistant to that. There's also some stuff in here about prions. So the suggestion there is that all of this dream world stuff and whatever came from Mars is a prion, which is a protein that's broken down. It's like mad cow disease is a disease of prions, and there's a prion disease with deer right now that you can catch from eating venison. Prions are like a nasty thing. They're like scrap protein that can get in and basically mutate, mess up your DNA and really ruin you. And he's tying, or sorry, Moto Hagio's tying that to the idea of like a cordyceps in a sense, like a fungal infection that could take over and drive somebody, except she's doing that with the prions. So I'm assuming that the Aoba character would have got the prions from eating her father's heart, and that the prions have something to do with Mars, that they're the remnants of this civilization on Mars that have now like tainted this girl's brain and given her superpowers. I'm assuming that's like the scope of what the kind of project is about, this scientific project, and how all these three different pieces that seem tangential actually fit together. So I think I've got a pretty good grasp on it by the end of reading the book, and it's interesting, well done, well written. I just feel like, ooh, they could have like, I'm used to manga like more slow rolling, and this one really just threw me off the cliff into the deep end, and then never slowed down to like let me catch up. So you really got to approach this book slow, which I actually really appreciate. By the time I got done with it, is that there are all these really intricate like interpersonal relationships that seem primary to the author, and that's part of what's making the bigger like plot details a little harder to latch onto. But by the time I get used to juggling all that, then I'm really enjoying it. So maybe it's just a mode of storytelling that, since I don't normally read shoujo manga, I'm not very used to. I know in the few first couple chapters that I read of Heart of Thomas, I feel like I got a little quicker hold on the characters and stuff in that one. So I'm not sure if this is standard for Moto Hagio's work or not, but it has, really got me interested in it. Glad I got this. I will definitely be getting the rest of the Moto Hagio stuff that Fantagraphics is putting out, and hopefully it's building towards a complete library, or at least a library of the great works. And again, someone like that's, I've said this in a couple other videos, but when you like the Enrique Breccia stuff, where you have someone whose career spans such a long span of time, like his from the 70s till currently, Moto Hagio obviously working far back and then up at least as soon as 2003. You've got someone who has a hell of a career, and they're releasing significant chunks of work like this, and this is only volume one. That's pretty cool, and it's exciting to know that there's still that much like great classic comics out there that I've not even read, after I feel like, God, I must have read everything that matters by now. It's nice to know that we'll never run out of stuff that matters. Even if no one ever made a comic again, there'd be enough to keep me busy for a lifetime. So that's really cool. Otherworld Barbara, very, very strange book, but has me totally fascinated with Moto Hagio. Looking forward to volume 2 and the rest of Moto Hagio's work, and really excited that Fantagraphics is putting this out.
Back to the land, let's get away, just for one.